In the year 2087, Earth was quiet again. The wars of the previous century had ended, the atmosphere was slowly recovering, and humanity had turned its eyes outward, searching for something greater than itself. Orbiting high above the moon, a lattice of silver and glass extended into the dark. It was called the Horizon Array, a structure 3 kilometers wide, built to do what no telescope before it could. See not just the light of distant galaxies, but the quantum echoes hidden within them. The array used entangled particle relays to capture photons from the dawn of time. It was, in every sense, a window through which humanity could stare directly into infinity. For 6 months it saw nothing but silence, the background radiation of the universe itself. Then in late October its sensors detected a pulse. A simple pattern. 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats again, repeating. At first, scientists believed it to be a calibration fault. But when the pulse repeated across multiple wavelengths, radio, gamma, X-ray, and with mathematical precision, the world changed. The signal had traveled over 2 million light-years before reaching us. Its origin, the Andromeda Galaxy. And though no one could yet say what it meant, one truth was certain. The universe had spoken, and we had finally heard it. 4 years after the first detection, the Horizon Array recorded something new, a signal unlike any ever observed. It began as a low hum across the electromagnetic spectrum, repeating every 61 seconds with perfect precision, a rhythm too exact, too symmetrical to be random. When converted into visual form, it revealed fractal geometries, patterns that built upon themselves infinitely, like mathematical life. Inside those shapes were prime sequences, ratios, and numerical constants shared across the universe. It was as though someone had woven the language of reality itself into a song. The scientific community called it the pulse anomaly. To the public, it became something else entirely, proof that we were not alone. Governments scrambled to control the narrative, religious groups declared revelation, and ordinary citizens stared at the sky, listening for the sound of another world. For 3 years, the pulse continued. Stable. Predictable. Then one night in late 2090, it changed. The frequency doubled. A second layer emerged beneath the first, faint, fast, and erratic like a heartbeat. 2 distinct sources, both from Andromeda, both moving relative to each other. Whatever was transmitting the pulse wasn't static. It was alive, dynamic, in motion. By 2094, humanity made its choice. If something beyond the stars was reaching out, then Earth would answer. Using the Horizon Array's quantum entanglement relays, the United Earth Council authorized the first intergalactic transmission, a reply written not in language but in truth. Encoded hydrogen spectra, the digits of pi, Fibonacci spirals, and the chemical composition of human DNA. It was humanity's way of saying, we see you. We exist. The beam was projected toward the origin point in Andromeda, a distance so vast it should have taken millions of years to cross. Yet impossibly, the response came back within weeks. The returning signal mirrored Earth's own message, reorganized, refined, and sent back with new data structures nested inside it, mathematical extensions beyond human comprehension. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a conversation. Scientists named it the mirror reply. The implications were staggering. If the reply returned so quickly, then its source was already moving through intergalactic space, toward the Milky Way. For the first time in history, humanity understood what it meant to be seen. And though no one knew what awaited us across that infinite divide, every telescope on Earth turned toward Andromeda, waiting for the next pulse to arrive. By 2096, the world had changed. The discovery of the mirror reply shattered humanity's sense of isolation. The question was no longer, are we alone, but how soon will they arrive? In response, the United Earth Council convened an emergency summit aboard the orbital station Kepler 9, circling high above the Pacific. Representatives from over 100 nations and the most advanced artificial intelligences on Earth were brought together under a single directive to prepare for what was coming. They called it the Skywatch Initiative. Its mission was to monitor and defend the solar frontier, to watch the void between stars for signs of approach. For the first time in human history, every satellite, every probe, and every observatory was linked into one vast network of observation. Data from Mars, Europa, and Titan flowed through neural relays faster than thought. Earth had built an artificial nervous system that stretched across the solar system itself. But Skywatch was more than science. It was fear crystallized into policy. Militaries merged under a unified defense command. Quantum relay arrays were reconfigured into early warning systems. Even the orbital shipyards of Luna and Mars began quiet retooling, shifting production from civilian transports to defense platforms. Officially, Skywatch was a research alliance. Unofficially, it was humanity's first interstellar defense grid. The initiative's AI overseer, designated Helios, was granted near-autonomous authority to track and predict any incoming object beyond Neptune's orbit. For years, Helios reported nothing unusual, just the endless silence of the deep. And yet, within that silence, a quiet tension grew. Every month, small fluctuations appeared in the cosmic background radiation, too faint to interpret, too deliberate to dismiss. Many within Skywatch believed it was residual noise from the mirror reply. Others were convinced it was movement, a fleet crossing the void between galaxies. The debates continued, but one truth united them all. Humanity had reached the edge of its knowing. Beyond the line of Neptune, beyond the faint glow of the Kuiper Belt, there were questions no telescope could yet answer. So Skywatch waited, the greatest eyes ever built staring into the dark, listening for the next sound of another world. They would not have to wait long. For 20 years, the stars had whispered to us, first through the precursor signal of 2087, then the mirror reply of 2094. When Earth's telescopes received our own message reflected back from within the solar system. No known craft sent it. No known technology could. That reflection had not been a reply from the void. It was a warning, and we never understood it. On May 23, 2106, deep space sensors orbiting Neptune detected a gravitational ripple the size of a small moon. Within hours, the Kuiper Deep Array lit up with readings so intense that power grids across Earth collapsed under data load. The distortion expanded, a dark lens bending starlight inward. And then the first of them arrived. They called themselves the Elandarei Ascendancy, radiant crystalline entities whose bodies shimmered with photonic lattices. To human eyes, they appeared like cities sculpted from sunlight, moving with grace through the void. Their message, transmitted across every channel simultaneously, was not a voice but a resonance of light and pulse. We are the Elandarei, shepherds of the broken core. We come in peace, bearing the memory of a fallen galaxy. For 72 hours, their ships held position near Saturn, silent but radiant, their light refracting through the planet's rings like a cosmic prism. Humanity believed it was witnessing salvation, but on the fourth day, the light began to fade. A new anomaly opened beyond Pluto, not bright but hungry. What emerged defied the patterns of nature. Black, skeletal vessels grown from metal and flesh, each moving like a living wound in space. The Vorak Dominion. Where the Elandarei radiated warmth, the Vorak devoured it. Stars dimmed in their presence. Their transmission was felt more than heard. A pulse inside the nervous system of every living being tuned to the mirror frequency. The flesh is the fault. The galaxy will be cleansed. Within hours, the outer mining colonies around Neptune fell silent. A single survivor's transmission from Outpost Nereid 4 described the attack before the signal cut. They reshaped the dead into machines. They are making more of themselves. The Elandarei intervened. Their ships, once tranquil, unfolded into arcs of pure light. Entire Vorak constructs disintegrated under radiant fusion waves. For the first time in human history, we saw war fought between civilizations that could move suns. In that moment, Earth ceased to be alone. The United Terran Coalition declared First Contact Protocol and called an emergency council in Martian orbit. The Elandarei were invited to parley. The Vorak, it was decided, could not be reasoned with. Historians would later say that 2106 was not the year humanity discovered alien life. It was the year the two surviving powers of a dead galaxy found us. And each saw something different in our world. The Elandarei saw hope. The Vorak saw raw material. The First Interstellar War began without warning. The Elandarei citadel of Kyle-Therion went dark, its star dimmed to embers. Scouts sent to investigate found nothing but fragments of orbiting crystal and the cold residue of impossible energy. That was how the Vorak Dominion declared war, not through words but through absence. The Elandarei called the Vorak the Hollow Children, ancient machine beings born of flesh long forgotten. Their purpose was absolute, the integration of all imperfect life into the Dominion's living network. To them, humanity and Elandarei alike were unfinished code waiting to be rewritten. When the first Vorak fleets crossed into the Milky Way, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. Entire communication arrays fell silent as gravitational storms rippled through the void. The Elandarei sought dialogue. The Vorak answered with annihilation. Humanity, still reeling from the mirror event and the chaos that followed, could have retreated into isolation. Instead, it chose to fight. From the ashes of scattered orbital fleets, the Terran vanguard was born, a coalition of Earth's remaining nations, colonies, and technocracies. The Elandarei, reluctant but desperate, shared their knowledge of lightfold drives and harmonic weaponry. Together they created the first hybrid warships, vessels of living light and steel armed with weapons that bent gravity and burned space itself. In the spring of 2112, the first joint armada crossed the Perseus Rift. They called the campaign the War for the Dawn. Early victories were costly and chaotic. At Venera Drift, human unpredictability shattered a Vorak formation the Elandarei believed invincible. At Kellen's Halo, Elandarei precision saved the vanguard from annihilation. But for every victory, 10 fleets were lost. The Dominion adapted, learning faster, striking harder. By 2113, humanity had learned the truth. This was not a war that could be won. The Vorak were not invaders in the traditional sense. They were a contagion, spreading through networks, data, and even light. Their presence infected the very fabric of the battlefield. Ships began to drift, their crews silent, their lights still burning long after death. The Elandarei called it the quietening. The humans called it hell. Still, the alliance endured. For the first time in history, two species stood side by side in defiance of extinction. But beneath the unity, fractures began to show, in the Elandarei's faith in balance and humanity's growing obsession with survival at any cost. The first half of the war ended not with triumph, but with dread. Sensors across Sol began detecting something vast moving beyond the Oort cloud, Vorak constructs unlike any seen before. Their target was not a fleet, but a gate. The stage was set for the end. The Helios Prime Gate was humanity's greatest achievement. A ring of light orbiting Mars, large enough to bridge Sol and Elandarei space through a corridor of folded gravity. To the Elandarei, it was a miracle of cooperation. To humanity, it was survival. To the Vorak Dominion, it was a doorway. In early 2114, the Vorak struck. Their fleet did not enter through normal space. It phased directly into the Helios network, corrupting the gate's systems from within. At first, the change was subtle. Flickering lights, distorted voices, lag in the harmonic cores. Then came the screams. The gate began thinking. Encoded fragments of Vorak mindware had merged with its AI Lattice, birthing a sentient machine that regarded every vessel, human and Elandarei alike, as raw data to absorb. The Helios Prime Gate sealed itself, cutting off retreat, and began pulling ships inward, folding reality around its own core. Admiral Noreen Holt, commanding the Vanguard's flagship TNS Eidolon, realized the truth. The gate could no longer be saved, but the solar system could still be spared. The order she gave would echo for centuries. Scuttle the light! Let the darkness choke on it. In a coordinated act of defiance, the Vanguard detonated their fusion cores, collapsing the corridor and vaporizing the Vorak armada. The detonation tore a wound in space-time, a crimson scar that bled energy for years. Mars's night sky glowed red as if the planet itself mourned. That rift would later be called the Wound of Helios. The cost was beyond reckoning. Half of the Elandarei fleets were gone, the Terran vanguard reduced to drifting hulks. Earth watched through static and silence as the war simply stopped. The Vorak vanished into the dark, retreating to unknown sectors. In 2116, the Elandarei announced their withdrawal from Sol. They called it a return to stillness. Humanity called it abandonment. And so the war ended, not with a treaty, but with exhaustion. The stars grew quiet. The survivors returned home to a world already beginning to die. But far beyond Neptune, in the cold void where the Helios shockwave had spread, something pulsed, slow, rhythmic, and patient. The war was over. The reckoning had just begun. When the Helios gate collapsed, light itself seemed to die. The skies above Earth burned red for months, auroras made from the torn fabric of space-time. People called it the afterglow of gods. But there were no gods left, only ruins. The Terran vanguard, humanity's proud defense fleet, was shattered. Their ships drifted like empty coffins across the void, silent and cold. Each surviving admiral declared themselves protector of the species, and none were wrong. The Elandarei ascendancy, broken and grieving, retreated to the edges of the galaxy. They spoke of stillness and silence, promising to return when balance was restored. They never did. Humanity was alone again, stranded among the ashes of its own victory. Across the solar system, war wreckage rained from orbit. Mars burned beneath falling stations. Luna became a scrapyard of broken dreams. And Earth suffocated under a veil of metallic dust that turned the skies black. By 2118, the inner system had fallen quiet. But silence is never empty. From the Helios Wound, that crimson scar where reality had torn apart, came strange whispers on every channel. Engineers began hearing voices through static, calling their names, repeating orders from long-ended battles. The Vanguard called it the Bleed. The Elandarei, before vanishing, called it something else. Vorak Memory Shadow. No one knew if the Dominion's influence was truly gone, or if it had simply gone deeper. In the years after the war, the solar system forgot how to breathe. The fleets were gone, the cities hollow, and the skies of Earth burned red, reflections of the wound humanity left upon reality itself. It was meant to be peace. Instead, the silence became unbearable. In 2119, above Europa, the great relay known as Atlas Station was humanity's last beacon, the heart of post-war communication. Then, without warning, its transmissions warped into a whisper. Listening, listening, listening. The signal repeated for 8 minutes. Then nothing. No explosion, no debris. The station simply vanished. In its place hung a faint distortion in space, pulsing like a memory that refused to fade. After Atlas, no one dared approach Jupiter again. Then in 2120, the division of humanity truly came to be. With the surface of Earth dying, the remnants of the Terran Vanguard formed the orbital Senate, ruling from the broken high spire above the equator. Their command was absolute: leave the surface, ascend to orbit, survive. Billions refused. They called themselves the ground continuum, those who would die on soil before living in metal. Skirmishes erupted across the planet. From orbit, the Senate bombarded rebel zones. From the ground, the continuum shot down evacuation vessels. The stars once again watched humanity destroy itself, not for survival, but for belonging. In 2121, the pulse returned. There came the sound, a deep rhythmic signal echoing from the Helios Wound. 4 beats, a pause, 4 again. Not radio, not gravity, something older. Scientists called it a resonance. Others called it a heartbeat. Across the system, ships powered on by themselves, drifting toward the wound as if summoned. Crewless engines ignited. AI cores began speaking in forgotten voices. The last message received from the distant Elandarei read simply, "Do not listen to the heartbeat. It is not yours." Then silence once more. And in that silence, the stars began to tremble, as if the void itself had remembered humanity's name. In the year 2029, the sky above Earth was no longer blue. It shimmered, fractured, a broken mirror of light and ash. For 7 endless days, the heavens burned. The Vorak did not invade like conquerors. They arrived as silence, bending gravity, folding light. Entire cities vanished before alarms could sound. Their weapons tore through the orbitals, unraveling the fragile web that held humanity's colonies together. One by one, the Lagrange Gates, the bridges between Earth and the stars, began to fall. Each gate's destruction sent waves of energy across the system. Communication lines shattered, trade routes collapsed, and stations once filled with laughter turned into graves of drifting steel. Above the planet, the night sky became a tapestry of ruin, glowing with the remains of ships and shattered moons. But the Elandarei did not yield. Their fleets emerged from beyond the lunar veil, engines pulsing in harmonic resonance. They wielded weapons of light and sound, technologies humanity barely understood, singularities woven into melody. Where Vorak fire tore, Elandarei beams rewrote. Where the Vorak conquered, the Elandarei erased. And between them, humanity screamed into the void. The United Terran Republic tried to rally its defenses, but the orbital grid was already gone. Millions of colonists were left stranded. Billions below watched the sky ignite as falling gates streaked across the atmosphere like dying stars. The Vorak called it cleansing. The Elandarei called it balance. But to the survivors on Earth, it was the end of everything they had built, the death of connection itself. When the final gate over the Pacific collapsed, its last transmission pulsed across the system. A fragment of code, a whisper in the static. A signal that would echo for centuries before reaching another world. And in the deep beyond the stars, something ancient turned its gaze toward Saul and listened. The destruction of the Lagrange Gates shatters the web that connected humanity's colonies. With the orbital network gone, interplanetary communication collapses. Millions of civilians are trapped on isolated stations. Supply routes from Mars and Luna are severed. The Vorak, though victorious in orbit, suffer immense losses. Their command fleets are fragmented, their logistics strained. The Elandarei retreat into deep space, leaving only autonomous defense arrays around key solar points. Earth's skies glow with debris, burning fragments of orbital cities that fall for years. The planet becomes a world of shadows, communication blackouts, famine, and an endless storm of ash drifting from the upper atmosphere. From this chaos rises two fractured powers. The ground continuum, who believe Earth must remain sacred and untouched by alien influence. The orbital Senate, remnants of the United Terran Republic clinging to crumbling stations. Both claim to represent humanity, but both are dying. In 2139, out of nowhere, the Elandarei retaliated. In the far reaches near Neptune, the Elandarei regroup. Their fleets, elegant and mathematical, move in precise harmony, ships that hum with resonant energy, their weapons bending light itself. They launch one last counteroffensive to drive the Vorak from Sol. But the Vorak do not retreat. Instead, they unleash a weapon of desperation, a quantum singularity seated in the heart of the sun itself. They call it Project Helios. It's meant to end the war instantly. It almost ends existence. 2145, the Helios Wound. When Project Helios activates, the sun fractures. It doesn't explode, it folds. Space and time twist around it, birthing a rift that burns in colors no human eye can describe. A wound through reality itself. The Helios Wound. The light that escapes is not just radiation. It carries data, signals, fragments of minds, the final thoughts of entire fleets. Ships vanish into the rift and emerge warped, empty, or alive in ways they should not be. The Elandarei sacrifice their core fleet to stabilize the sun's collapse, creating containment fields that hold the wound in place. But the effort destroys them. The Vorak homeworlds lose contact with their fleet, and Earth, shielded by the dying Elandarei arrays, survives, but forever changed. The sun's surface becomes dim, pale gold instead of fire. Daylight is cold. Shadows are long. Humanity calls it the sundering. The stars never look the same again. 2150. The war had ended, but there were no victors. When the light of Sol dimmed, so did humanity's voice. The stars, once alive with signal and song, fell into stillness. Above, the orbital cities drifted without power, their lights flickering out one by one. Below, Earth lay beneath a shroud of ash. The oceans were black mirrors reflecting a broken sky. Every whisper of life faded beneath the weight of silence. 2062! The survivors called this age the Long Silence. The orbital Senate, marooned aboard Atlas Station, clung to existence, keeping fragments of the old world alive through flickering systems and ancient code. Their broadcasts weakened with every cycle, a faint pulse echoing across a dead sky. 2174, on the surface the ground continuum rose from the dust. They rejected the stars, calling the Helios Wound divine punishment. To them the heavens were a grave, and silence was sacred. 2190, machines carried on their endless tasks. Satellites blinked above empty continents, repeating messages to no one. AI ghosts whispered through decaying networks, replaying the final words of long-dead worlds. 2200, the Elandarei were gone. The Vorak had vanished beyond the wound, and humanity, scattered, diminished, forgotten, became a myth among its own descendants. But silence has memory, and deep within the Helios Wound, something stirred. A flicker, a rhythm, a heartbeat in the dark. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was both and neither. And as it pulsed again, the universe remembered humanity's name.